Welcome back to some professional StarCraft 2. I am pleased to introduce the red Zerg player in the top right of Royal Blood. Her name is Scarlett. Up against one of the most creative and efficient Terrans to ever grace us with his presence. The incomparable GuMiho, the last mech Terran. I don't know what we're going to see today and here in Wardy's Korean Royale, but I'm excited for these two. They both have their unique take on the game. They're two players who could, if you covered up the names, you likely could figure out or at least narrow down their style just by their unique attributes. Scarlett with her dedication to creep spread and Queens overall. GuMiho with one of the most consistent and likely mech plays, especially the battle mech style. But if you like either or both of these two players, if you like my commentary, well, you've already figured out I'm going to ask you to like this video. As well, subscribe if you haven't made it there yet. And you can get annoyed about my videos every single day, besides the days we don't have them, which is mostly Jimmy being lazy. So, kicking things off, a handful of Marines make their way across alongside these Hellions. Quite bold. Is there an armory? No, just straight up medevac. It looks like a Hellion drop to start off. Scarlett building 3 Queens at a time to complement the 3 already on the field. There's almost nothing Queens can't counter on their side of the map in the early game, much to the dismay of Terrans. Overlord. Yes, the ghetto Viking strats here. Trying to take out some of Scarlett's Overlords. Going to succeed, but also give away the fact there is indeed a medevac at this stage, which means no Banshee, no Viking, no Liberator, not even GuMiho's signature favorite, the Battlecruiser. Yeah, no Battlecruiser this game. A safety Banshee, no cloak on the way, which indicates to me it's more of a I don't want to die to a counterattack or some roaches, which probably a good basic option, as roaches already on the way. The Marines in the main trying to jam into this low ground, high ground location. And juggling the heli. GuMiho is, well, the attack is a bit disjointed, as is the defense. I do think this favors Scarlett overall. There's only 2 Hellions in the main. The Marines have to be picked up. Yeah, this... It was a bit of a bungling there for GuMiho. Realizing maybe an opportunity to get some damage at the natural. Hellions come into the 3rd. Scarlett slow on the reaction here. And finally some damage starting to come through. Looking to target drones. 7 drones down. And between all this, GuMiho has actually grown a 7-worker lead against Scarlett, who immediately counteracts that with a round of drones. A 4th hatchery is on the way. Overall, a little more damage than probably should have been done, but a lot less than could have been done by those early game Hellions and Marines. The Banshees will fly directly over and kill a Zergling, giving that option away. There is no cloak, but you can't rely on that as a Zerg, so adding multiple spores. I think GuMiho relying somewhat on his reputation as a hypermech player with those Banshees in order to bait out some extra spore crawlers here from Scarlett. Covering her bases, literally and figuratively. The evolution chambers have completed. 1-1 is already on the way on the other side of the map for GuMiho, who's opting for bio, and honestly played some really solid bio lately. As he relies so much more. I stand by that because he plays mech so often, he understands the just the tactics better, the timing, the best places to attack and why, as opposed to relying on just this sheer wrist-breakingly strong target fire and micro a lot of Terrans are known for. But of course, at some point, that does help more against a Zerg who has overwhelming amounts of units. So we'll see. Scarlett, despite taking some damage early, those Hellions not really being at the edge of the creep has had the result of Scarlett already being over halfway across the map in some places, with the creep spread. Incredibly efficient with it. Hellions still looking for an opportunity. So many Hellions. Lost 14 Hellions built in this game. So even when GuMiho doesn't play mech, he relies on it for much of the early game. A second factory on the way. The drones, somewhat vulnerable, but the roaches move in to deal with it. And I think Scarlett, well, has a change. I was about to say she doesn't know it's bio, but there's a Marine cosplaying in the main. Okay. Are siege tanks going to be able to get out of this factory? Because, I mean, yes, but also, I have no idea. We'll check back in. Check back in with UNN News. We'll give you the updates on the siege tank blockage very soon. I swear, like, this is the most walled-in factory. I think they can just... Okay. Taking the scenic route here. Yeah, they just go all the way around. It's annoying, but it's a bit janky, as the technical term goes, but GuMiho now with 1-1 done. Will be challenging Scarlett on the map momentarily. Combat shield as well. But Scarlett has taken so much of the map. Just, well, creep spread going to be dealt with on the right. The roaches scuttling into the fray. Infestors with pathogen glands on the way. And so far, with the hive coming up, Scarlett speeding into that late game tech, whereas GuMiho is reliant on the most conventional of Terran armies. Marines, medevacs, and siege tanks. A Terran army holding the high ground. Scarlett underestimating the power of the Marines. Or is it the other way around? Well, here comes an infestor with a fungal, which could definitely turn the tides. But the Marines are just gunning down so many of the roaches. The Queen's caught out as well. And I don't think Scarlett got the better end of that tray. GuMiho just pressed the stim button and stood his ground. And without the infestors, it became a lot more difficult. Nice fungal there, but now Scarlett fighting a retreating action as her base in the center under fire. Siege tanks on the back line. The Banshee's still intact to add a lot of DPS into the fray. +2/+2 for both sides. GuMiho has a slight advantage on the timing, but neither player will have it intact as this fight starts. Corrosive Bow lands, softens up the tank. 4 infestors on the back line, making things a lot more difficult for the Marines. And GuMiho, while he took some very efficient fights, has yet to exploit the main weakness of these infestors, of the Roach Ravager composition, which is the inability to fly, or at least react to things like medevacs very quickly. The lack of mobility and anti-air built into the army is usually the defining characteristic, with GuMiho attacking head-on into what is now one of the most difficult armies to battle. Scarlett starts the Ultralisk Cavern and the Baneling Nest, as well as Adrenal Gland, so very much a switch into Ling Bane Ultralisk, and against someone who only has more conventional units. No Ghosts, no Liberators. Those Ultras can just chew through the entire army. Banshees continue to be an annoyance. The rocks, opening up an opportunity towards the third base here, will remain intact for now. The Scarlett consolidates her creep spread. The Banshees will split to minimize the damage from fungal. Succeed at that for now. But the Queens will take out one. Scarlett's maxed out. +1 melee. Ultralisk Cavern completed. Looking for opportunities with the Roach Ravager. Moving in with the Roaches. Siege tanks doing a number on them. Banshee's still looking for more. And what is it? So far, about even on the minerals and gas loss. Not too much gas either way. 3-3 starts for GuMiho, but Scarlett is already well on her way with just all the upgrades. All stacked together in a pretty defensible location, but still, if GuMiho is able to get a drop-off in the next minute or so, it could be devastating to the tech tree. Just, I don't see that happening. GuMiho hasn't even attempted a drop ever since that initial attack. All he's done, build up the siege tanks, the Marines, now looking towards that central base as base number 5. And now the Marines and tanks all together, or at least mildly spread. Not exactly, you get the idea. Still playing very defensively. The creep spread reaching up towards the high ground on GuMiho's third. Always a bit concerning. The double macro hatch, a Dark-esque expansion of production. Always a good idea to emulate Dark, except when it isn't. It's quite a interesting individual. Chitinous plating is done. Ultraless speed starts. No ultras on the field as Scarlett has been content with the army she's fielding now. Banshee adding some damage. Parasitic bomb on a handful of the medevacs. Corrosive vial thrown up and lands on a missile turret. The pathfinding, though, of the units. Some of them get caught, but will take out at least one of the tanks. Meanwhile, finally a drop comes out for GuMiho, an effective one at that. Takes out one of the hatcheries, but the banelings roll in on defense and take out every single Marine that was supposed to go in those medevacs. Another attack led by a brave SCV that gets slaughtered immediately over on the left flank. Working at least through some of the creep. Sensor towers give a bit of warning when Scarlett is moving in to attack the central location. But the creep spread is nearly reaching to the edge of the planetary. Scarlett not letting up on that. 4 ultras on the way, but joined by 3 ghosts in the production tab, which are about a match for that number of ultralisks. A wave of corrosive bout looking to hit some of the air units, but still not finding them. The Banshee had 15 kills and counting, just continually adding damage into these fights. GuMiho's been very diligent about keeping it alive. Another wave. Beautiful fungal. Corrosive bile knocks down 2 medevacs, the rest badly bruised. The tanks, though, will continue their march forward onto the low ground. Ravagers, Ultralists, and Infestors, oh my. Ultra eating a lot of the damage on the front lines in order to let the Zerglings through onto the siege tanks. Blinding Cloud complementing the army. Banelings rolling in. They've been exhausted for now. Another set of Ultras make their way through, chewing through the tanks, but the Ghosts line up their shots and are able to bring down most of the Ultras. One more, Corrosive Bile, Liberator taken down, Snipes on the Overseer on the way out, Banshee still alive, Burrow finishing up as Scarlett continues to chew her way into the army, but GuMiho continues to hold the line. And I think that, that was about an even fight there. And if we look into the units lost, we see significantly more gas, 4,300 to 2,800 lost for Scarlett. And 1,500 more minerals, 14 to 12.3k for Scarlett. But overall, in this stage of the game, being within a few thousand is definitely a good situation for Zerg. The Terran army is very simply more cost-effective. But if Scarlett can continue this level of relative efficiency, while denying the bases on the corners, which she has taken and GuMiho has not. And in fact, one of the gold bases has already been grabbed by Scarlett, who's mining it comfortably with a dozen drones. She's got 95 drones overall, playing a beautiful game thus far. GuMiho, not a slouch. This is actually a very solid game from both sides. Neither player risking it on an all-in attack. Both of them really focused on the mid-game, but smoothly transitioning into the late game here. And now Scarlett has the Ultra Link Bane with enough Ravagers to knock down key units. And GuMiho has worked his way into the mech. Now has Blue Flame, Neosteel Armor, getting Cloak, I assume for the Ghosts. Multiple Siege Tanks, Hellbats, as well as Medevacs. So we have entered the late game. We're still not quite at the end game, where the entire map starts mining out. But both players seem comfortable with playing at this stage of StarCraft 2. And it's exciting to see 2 players who are kind of matched so equally at this stage. GuMiho definitely no stranger to late game strategies. And Scarlett historically has focused on them almost to a fault sometimes. We now have Hydras being added in, the Greater Spire for some Brute Lords, several more command centers as well. And a commanding presence indeed for GuMiho, starting to extend the siege line forward up the center. Even down the ramp, clearing up some of that creep that seems to be everywhere else on the map. 4 dropper lords being produced for Scarlett. Some Lings and Banes into the main could definitely be a wrinkle in GuMiho's strategies. GuMiho now has 6 medevacs. He's slowly working his way out of the Marine Marauder into some more strong late game units. Still has enough bio in order to pose a threat and hopefully not drag all those medevacs out of position. But I love how consistently they're moving in and out of unit compositions. This is actually some of the most dynamic army compositions I've ever seen in Terran versus Zerg. And now here's GuMiho. The Banelings rolling in, trying to interrupt the Ghost, but there's just too many siege tanks on the front line. The Ghost count is too damn high. 1 Viper targeted, full energy, no energy. But Dropper Lords into the main. 4 full Overlords. Dropping out Adrenalings here that are about to have +3 attack. Ripping into the infrastructure of Blue Flame Hellions. They don't have +3 mech yet, so not able to roast those Zerglings quite as effectively as they might like to, but definitely will do so eventually. And now we gotta ask ourselves the question, is how does Scarlett handle this late game army? We've seen so many times the Zerg player get a huge advantage, most of the map, even money in the bank. But the Terran remains nearly unbreakable, with one of the most cost-effective armies in the entirety of the game. The Ghosts are in retreat. Banelings rolling in, trying to chase them down. Siege tanks looking for a target and finding far too many. The Ghosts will cloak on the backline, but Scarlett knows where they are. Unfortunately, trying to roll through, it cost her almost everything. Losing a huge chunk of the army, so many Banelings, and killing. There are only 4 Ghosts dead so far, and I think almost none in that fight. GuMiho gonna use the opportunity. 112 Zerglings in production for Scarlett. Reliant on that Ling Bane. Just something to overwhelm. Picks up a Ghost, or not, well, picks up Ghosts and Thors. Evacuates. GuMiho managed to get the gold base over here despite all the creep almost everywhere else. Over to the right flank. Scarlett gonna deal with that relatively easily. 13 SCVs go down alongside it. GuMiho hasn't been able to secure a new mining location in quite a while. Scarlett's got 5k, nearing 6k in the bank. GuMiho isn't even maxed and only has about 1,000 of each resource. 27 more Banelings for Scarlett. She could keep it up as the gold base, as well as one of the corner bases has been claimed by Scarlett and just smashing. GuMiho only able to get a few hundred minerals before Scarlett came in with a vengeance and smashed the gold. So, maybe not able to win a fight, but Scarlett so far is ahead in terms of the war. Sending some more Zerglings. The Dropper Lords were not taken out and will be used to ferry some more Zerglings in towards the main. There's no units in the main base for defense. It's going to have to be just reinforcements. GuMiho has no vision. Meanwhile, while dropping into the main, Scarlett closes in on the army. Banelings rolling through, avoiding triggering on the Thor and the Hellbats, instead focused on the valuable yet weaker Ghosts. And the Zerglings are overrunning the Ghost count while the Zerglings are overrunning the main. Scarlett is everywhere right now, at least everywhere important. Going into the Ghost Academy as well. GuMiho didn't start +3 mech weapons, which means it takes a second hit for these Hellbats to kill the Zerglings, and that means the Ghost Academy is going to go down. The armories potentially themselves. Scarlett asked herself, what would Dark do? And getting burrowing Lings in the main, while smashing everything else. Another base lands. The mules are dropped in vision of a creep tumor. They have very limited life, and I think even more limited than what they have by default. As Scarlett is going to see all this, GuMiho desperate to drag as many minerals out of that base as possible. But right now, I think Scarlett is in full command of this game. GuMiho, the Mule Valley here, that you can only have so... Oh my god. Well, Scarlett, every second those mules are mining is a potential deficit. So comes in again. Looking for an opportunity. Another... The Queen may very well take out the orbital, which was burning because of the Zerglings. A single Liberator, 16 drone kills, or at least mostly drone kills, I assume. The base is coming back. The SCV's looking for repair. We'll find it. The creep is extending so far that a scan has to be used. GuMiho is overwhelmed by Scarlett's ridiculous creep spread. Has to use some of the scans, which could be those incredibly valuable mules. In fact, GuMiho had an economic lead for just a moment because of those mules. But Scarlett is just overwhelming GuMiho on every front. The Zerglings unburrowed in the main and kill a siege tank, opening up an opportunity there. GuMiho under 50 SCVs. Scarlett builds another 80 Zerglings. She's lost 600. She can build plenty more. Another turn on the Ghost, looking for a handful more of them. Scarlett has expended much of her bank, but GuMiho is under 100 supply. There were SCVs in those medevacs. SCVs all over the place. The Zerglings will burrow again in the natural. GuMiho doing his very best to wall off his siege tanks. Another set of mules. Oh my god. Can you tell when the mules landed? The Grand Mule Canyon in the income graph. And it looks like we're gonna try to dig into it yet again, as they don't get any extra on the gold base. This is just the only new mining location. Hellbats roasting drones. Well done by GuMiho. Just immolating the mineral line. But the Broodlords into the cloak ghosts, but there's just not enough ghosts in order to gun them down in time. The Broodlords closing in, and Scarlett, once again, another tech transition here, as Scarlett just masterfully moving in and out of each tech tree, each branch of it, in order to combat what GuMiho is most focused on. A lot of Hellbats, siege tanks, overwhelming Broodlords. You've got just Marine tank Ultralisks and Vipers, which we haven't seen too many of. I imagine if we saw more Thors, there'd be Infestors on the field as well. Remember, we had Infestors earlier. And this has just been, while GuMiho has played a solid game himself, Scarlett has shown a masterclass in Zerg here, especially in the late game. The overwhelming creep spread, the Broodlords. I can't help but think we're drawing very close to a conclusion here in Game 1, as Scarlett's feudalism has been on full display, a focus on the Broodlords and the Overlords overall. The Queen's holding the early game. A kind of a desperate counterattack. GuMiho down to 70 supply. This has been a great game. A very solid one. Maybe not the best game of all time. Why am I undercutting it? But this is... I don't think GuMiho made any big mistakes either. Maybe not exploiting the Ravager Infestor composition as much as he could have. But overall, I don't think you can be too upset with this game if you're GuMiho going into Game 2. This Scarlett just didn't miss a beat on those tech switches. Really embracing the Zerg. And GuMiho was unable to find that unconscionably cost-effective army that Terran players like to build. There just never were quite enough Thors and Ghosts to put it together. Scarlett with an overwhelming amount of Zerg. And an incredible Game 1. Oh, that was a treat. That was a treat right there. I've never seen so many different Zerg units so comfortably brought out at the right time. That's one of those on paper exactly what you should do against Terran, but in practice rarely comes together. Well, and I'm excited. We have more games in Wardy's Korean Royale here. Like and subscribe. Make sure to check out Wardy. Wardy does such a great job. I do not envy him at all. I'm very appreciative that Wardy just puts on all these tournaments at so many different times, and even just gives out the replays for free, or, well, not for free, but for a ridiculously small cost on Patreon for people like me to enjoy on their own time. So I hope you check him out as well. Thank you for all your efforts. And well, we'll have to see if Scarlett's efforts will continue to pay off. In game 2, Dragon Scales. My personal favorite look for the map in the new map. I just love the color scheme here. The contrast. It looks really good. It really it's kind of a unique. We've seen a lot of space stations and deserted planets, but this truly feels like this like alien look without being unfamiliar. I'm a big fan of, because honestly, in StarCraft 2, since we can't, by popular demand, be particularly creative when it comes to the map layout, map makers have taken it upon themselves to be creative when it comes to the aesthetic. And I think Dragon Scales really nails it in that regard. We got 2 Rax Reaper coming up in game 2. Oh, that was such a great game. Scarlett on full display there. GuMiho. I don't even really like those are the best games. Well, some of the best games where you can't even really point to anything that went wrong. It's just Scarlett outplayed a little bit at many points that eventually added up to an overwhelming advantage. I wasn't sure the mass Zergling strat was going to pan out, but GuMiho never got to +3 mech weapons, which is a key part of making those Hellbats super effective, because he did opt for the Marine tank early. I think maybe a few more drops were needed to keep things busy. Oh, Reaper gets a kill after a beautiful grenade here. GuMiho's 2 Rax Reaper play, by the way. Scarlett saw at least 1 barracks at the front, so shouldn't be a huge surprise. Though not particularly respecting GuMiho's Reapers and not building a spine. Not even bothering with extra queens here. Instead getting a quick third. Just no respect for that early aggression. If you were scared of Reapers, you'd either be building at least like as many queens as you could. But instead Scarlett just gets the third. Realizing or saying you're not gonna get a critical amount of, you're not gonna be able to micro well enough to kill the queens or enough Zerglings. And with speed on the way, the expiration date on those Reapers doing damage is quickly approaching. And back at home, GuMiho has a factory right next to his main command center. So I found myself, I'm gonna do a little meta commentary, as you know I have a want to do, but I find myself, I don't want to overdo it, but I do try to describe. So I know, believe it or not, yeah, come back to the tab for a moment. Okay. Start listening instead of just listening. Like and subscribe. Okay. I know a lot of people use it, and I know from my own experience, I try to think about what I would like when it comes to casting or watching videos every day. It's a little different if you're making 1 video a week. You expect people to pay full attention, but I understand that, believe it or not, people have other things to do, like play StarCraft. I'm joking. So I try to describe what's going on. I think it's just better. One, for me, I can fill more time by saying, he's got the factory right next, I noticed myself doing it is why. He's got the factory with a reactor building 2 Hellions right next to the main command center in the top left of Dragon Scales. So while it's not really a radio commentary, I think that's not a bad habit to be in. That's not a wall. So hopefully you guys enjoy, or if you didn't notice and you didn't mind, hopefully it doesn't get too annoying to you. I don't do it on purpose, but I've tried to work it in the past as something that just makes it a little easier to tell what's going on, even if you're not paying 100% attention, because that's my job, not yours. So you're here for fun, arguably. Except Jimmy, of course, but that's what we don't pay him for. So, Scarlett. 4 queens at the third, more throughout, adding 2, 3, 4 more gases with the Roach 1 done. It looks like a Hellbat push from GuMiho, staging on the high ground here. Stim pack about to complete, armory already done. 4 Reapers, 4 Hellbats, and a bunch of Marines. Quite a variety pack here against Scarlett's Roaches and Queens. Now, I'm not sure what to make of this. This is a little bit of everything. You got your early game, your mid game, your Hellbats involved. Against Roach Queen, none of this should do particularly well. Another medevac shows up and decides it doesn't want to be part of any of this. Yeah, like many early game Hellbat pushes, this felt less than amazing as Scarlett loses only a couple drones, building 10 more, already going to be approaching the 60 mark against GuMiho, who is sitting on 47 SCVs. Does have a third command center. That is my biggest gripe, is players who will do all this and then not have a third command center, which kind of forces you to be essentially all in. You really need drone damage then. It's still not an incredible spot for GuMiho, as his upgrades are not going to be particularly quick compared to Scarlett's. The production is going to be a little later on, adding barracks 3, 4, and 5 at this point, while floating over to the third. +1/+1 on the way for both sides, almost identical timings. Evolution chambers in the main base versus the engineering base in the main. Fourth base on the way for Scarlett, adding that triangle location. I like expanding here as a fourth. I think a lot of players expand to the triangle location in front of the main as a third, and then just drops, just keep exploiting it. Because you're vulnerable. If someone comes in with medevacs from over this right side, then they can threaten both the third base and the main. Usually by the time you get to a fourth, you have a lot more units, a lot more production capability, and a single set of drops is not nearly the same level of a threat. I think it's a stylistic choice, but I like that Scarlett has kind of decentralized her production in that way, made it a lot less vulnerable to at least that particular strategy. All right. Speaking of drops, though, GuMiho with 4 medevacs over to the right, threatening that exact angle we talked about, diving in towards the main, where a few spore crawlers and queens are already online to repel them. Scarlett very prepared for this exact scenario, playing a great game strategically. I've been very impressed this year. Like, Scarlett's always been a good player, but that last game especially, and now this game so far, she's been on point, beating back GuMiho on every side of the map. GuMiho has not been making mistakes. It's just Scarlett has been anticipating and dealing with it before GuMiho can really find the damage. And I think mechanically Scarlett is the superior player, and it's really paying off right now. It's always really cool to see when both players are playing near their best. And it's such a solid matchup. Though I am a little disappointed. I can't... GuMiho's beaten Dark with Bio, okay? Those Marine tank timings. He's not just a mech player, okay? In fact, one of the better strategic Bio players. Relying on those tactics overall. But here we go, taking a page out of Beyond's Dream Journal. With 3 medevacs threatening the main. Scarlett is not hecking around right now. With 5 spore crawlers on the edge of the main. When you go Roach Ravager, your main weakness is a vulnerability to drops. So clearly, very clearly, making sure that weakness does not end up exploited. With a huge, like, this is a Twitch chat comment level of commitment to dealing with the drops here. For sure. 3 Vipers on the way now. Scarlett already at high. Kicking in before 10 minutes. Yeah, GuMiho. You know, it's not that expensive to do so. Scarlett's at 90 drones. GuMiho's nearly maxed out. +1 mech weapons on the way. No 2-2 in sight, though. So GuMiho really reliant on finding some damage, but has 117 to 108 army supply. Scarlett rolling in while still on the creep before GuMiho's siege is up. A lot of the Marines are taken out, but not enough to stall out this push. Wave of corrosive bile. Doesn't hit anything. +1 mech is about to complete. A big damage upgrade for those siege tanks. Might be able to take out the rocks as well during all this. Looking for more. Vipers in play. Blinding Cloud gonna be required to deal with an army of this magnitude. The siege tank positioning is beautiful. Right up until they can't fire at all. Most of the siege tanks disabled and knocked out by Scarlett's roaches and lings. Just in time to deal with all of this. +2 Carapace gonna kick in as well. Ravagers, roaches, and zerglings, oh my. Scarlett has 2,800 minerals in the bank. How much larva? Not nearly enough to spend it, realizing that the double hatcheries here. Ultraless Cavern. Scarlett has those Vipers just in time to deal with the tank push. And now is truly going to be able to embrace the Zerg with mass production. Are you kidding me? 12 more drones? I gotta go up to 100 drones. And why not? If it's working out so far, she's managed to fight multiple battles where I don't know if most of this damage was done by Vipers or by GuMiho's army, but either way, probably going to be regretting that as the hatchery gets taken out. The fourth base here, another army over to the left flank. GuMiho, a bit of desperation in these counterattacks, trying to keep Scarlett busy while he rebuilds towards 200 supply. GuMiho's only sitting on 4 bases on his side of the map. Adding some more command centers now, takes out another hatchery in the bottom left corner. +2 on the way. Infantry weapons and armor for GuMiho. More command centers outside the planetary at the 12 o'clock location. But the Vipers have a lot of energy. I don't even know if there's a Ghost Academy right now. Blinding Cloud disables the planetary and gets a siege tank. Another siege tank negated as well. Blinding Cloud doing a great job thus far. Planetary taken out. Corrosive Bile. The command centers were canceled nearby. Vipers fighting. But the Liberators are taking out the Vipers, who are limited in anti-air. And a great flank by GuMiho on a move command. Scarlett can lose many of the key units here. The Ravagers go down, and an expensive takedown here. Scarlett with the first major mistake that I've noticed in this entire series, losing so much gas in a single attack. This will allow GuMiho to set up for a very solid position. Multiple Liberators, but there's just not enough siege tanks, and there's too much creep as the banelings roll in, doing terrible, terrible damage to the army. And Scarlett will hold. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't cheap, but Scarlett holds the line. The Queens push back the Liberators, and Scarlett's still struggling to spend her ridiculous amount of income right now, once again maintaining a massive income advantage throughout all of this. GuMiho just didn't have the unit count in order to push through, and really missing the ghosts right now. A key part of every balanced Terran breakfast and late game unit composition. The ghosts really tie everything together. They're not bad as just a fighting unit, but the ability to snipe and EMP just puts them well over the top. And GuMiho now adding on the Ghost Academy, but still in a tenuous position, both economically and supply-wise, with 160 supply and 68 SCVs. Only 4 bases mining at the moment. Well, really 2.5, as the main and the natural are surely mined out. There's 7 medevacs for 3 or 4 units here on the left flank. It happens sometimes. A double drop over to the right has been chased down and forced to pick up. Widow Mines being mixed into the composition as well. Drilling Claws is done. The planetary over to the left side has been mining comfortably for a few minutes, but Scarlett looking to change that. Ultralisk on the front line. Liberator gonna take him out, but Scarlett gonna take a vengeance on the planetary. Just smashing it with a perfect amount of Ravagerling Bane and enough left over to threaten the third. GuMiho is just not finding really the position. He can't safely defend any of his outlying bases. I don't even really know where it went particularly wrong. It's just Scarlett has shot him down at every turn. Every attempt to get critical damage done has been met with more than the same amount on the other side. Scarlett now has 7 bases. Plus more hatcheries. A comfortable economic lead. Occasionally mules make a dent, but that is inconsistent and unsustainable at this rate. As GuMiho doesn't have that many orbitals either, only 4. Has not managed to get that mass command center count. Quite an entrenched position at the northern base, but anything but over to the left side. as more banelings rolling in. SCV's on the run. A handful of roaches. At this point, Scarlett doesn't even want the roaches anymore. She's trading them out in order to fill in more lings and banelings. And so far, just a incredibly well-played series by Scarlett. I am hard-pressed to see GuMiho coming back from this position. Some ghosts are on the way. That is the makings of a comeback if I've ever seen one. But the Ultralists are leading the charge. Banelings are rolling into the mineral line. The SCV is completely exposed. You'll see that workers killed tally continue to shoot up. 72 more Zerglings, plus 3 infantry weapons is now done. But will there be any infantry with which to use it? A few snipes take out the Ultras, but Scarlett is winding up for another attack. 72 more Zerglings. Spire is on the way. Greater Spire could potentially get involved, though I don't know if it's going to be necessary. Full energy Vipers. Scarlett, let me see the Banelings. No. More! How many Banes? 19. That's not... More! I want 38 more Banelings. Come on. Here I'm rolling around. More focused on the Zerg. I don't know if Banelings are particularly necessary for the army at this stage, as there aren't too many targets for them. Instead, the Zerglings to overrun the Marauders and the siege tanks. Ooh, bit of an awkward positioning, but Scarlett gonna take offense to that and get offensive. A single snipe comes out. Those siege tanks taking big chunks out of the army. Small drop. GuMiho trying to make some progress anywhere here. Parasitic bomb. Scarlett will consume part of the extractor. The Queens as well. Down goes the medevac, and Scarlett has consolidated her position. The creep spread is just like painted, like a broad brush across the map. Well played thus far. And continues to press forward. GuMiho at 130 supply. This game has not been a back and forth. I don't even think game 1 was particularly back and forth, but this is just GuMiho waiting for the hammer to drop right now. And Scarlett, not gonna keep him waiting for long. Here we go. Ultras, Lings, Bangs, 3-4 different angles. Widowmines do nothing. The Ghosts do nothing. The Vipers, parasitic bombs, looking for other targets. Ghosts overwhelmed by the Zerglings. And Scarlett overruns GuMiho to take it 2-0. A comfortable, decisive victory for the Canadian Zerg. And she is able to take the series with a solid 2-0. Some of the best games from Scarlett I have seen in a while. I'm excited for it. I hope you are as well. Thank you to Wardy. Thank you to the players. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe. Let's get those 1,000 likes and feed my ego and hopefully help you watch some more good games for the fans. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. I hope I made your day a little bit better. Good luck. Have fun. Stay chill.